Hey, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Today we are discussing a journalist article about Monster Hunter. Link in the description. My buddy Birdie is tagging along. You guys are in for a wild ride. I hope you enjoy. Maybe he redeems himself. Maybe there's a redemption arc. Let's see. I don't think so. This guy might have forgotten, or maybe he wasn't there to experience it, but we didn't get full guiding lands until after 2 title updates. The ice biome and the volcanic biome did not exist. And there's plenty of people that I know of and that are in the community. They do their guild card, and some of them will even go to hunter rank 999. They'll grind a specific quest specifically to hit 999.
Oh yeah.
And then they'll never even interact with something like the guiding lands or the anomaly system. Monster Hunter Wilds, the next major entry in Capcom's now best-selling series, is set to launch on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox on February 28th. Monster Hunter World was a truly evolutionary game in the franchise, setting the path for yet another major success in Wilds. While Capcom is no stranger to breaking its formula, as we've seen... Oh, I added a we. With the world's transition to open environments, many staples of the franchise have persisted throughout its lifespan. The vast majority of these time-tested features build a lot of positive acclaim, but there are a few remaining choices that add an asterisk. While Monster Hunter's expansions are often fantastic chunks of content in their own right, the cycle of their release has created a crutch that does not need to continue. Okay, here we go. Often, the endgame of a base Monster Hunter game, such as monsterhunterrise, is left quite barren in anticipation of the game's major expansion. With the creation of some half-baked, artificial grind to hold players over until its eventual release. Oh my goodness. All right, let's not go too hard on our... Let's
Okay, sorry.
You know, we'll let him cook a little bit.
True. Maybe he's cooking.
Monster Hunter Wilds has seen no updates related to its endgame content. Likely, it would give away the endgame in the trailers leading up to the release.
Before release. Jesus Christ, bro.
With the game potentially repeating the same trap as nearly every other Monster Hunter release. By every other, he means the last two. The trend of...
What kind of trap, bro?
I think the way he's cooking it, he's looking like... He's already insulted World and Rise's endgame. And we can get in that a little bit later, but we'll let him cook. I think he's based... This whole article, in theory, is like, hey, we need to stop relying on paid expansions that come a year after launch of the regular game to actually create an end-game loop. I think that's what he's trying to argue. Let's see, Nicholas Wade...
Well, it sounds like you're almost trying to say that the devs are holding back the base game just so they can sell, like an expansion.
I don't know if he's cooking that. I don't know if he's cooking that. I think more so
this trap is reward.
I think he's more so arguing that maybe they're not necessarily holding content hostage. I think he's more so arguing that they're crutching too hard on expansion content, that the base games are kind of limping, and then they get made complete through the expansion where they rectify any issues and things like that. At least if I were to give this guy some good faith argument.
Because that would make sense.
And you know what? There is a case to be made for something like that.
Yeah.
There is a case, but we'll see what he cooks and talk about it.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter expansions have had a relatively... Well, first off, he said how Monster Hunter expansions work. New content has always increased difficulty. And basically talks about the long history. Typically, a major expansion will release around 1 or 2 years after the base game launches. For the DS games, the released expansion would be sold as a standalone product, with the ultimate suffix added to the game's title. These standalone products would include all the content from the base game, with the primary addition of a heightened difficulty or rank of monsters and hunts. Of course, these re-released ultimate games would also feature the standard new content one would expect: new maps, monsters, and features. In total, the ultimate version could be seen, as the name implies, as the definitive edition of the game. I would say that's a pretty fair summary of the old versions of games. In fact, I even went over that
a lot of franchises did that
before. Well, like Monster Hunter was a little different in that they would re-release the base game alongside the expansion content, and it was like every game was built around that to a certain degree.
But for like a reduced price.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
It wouldn't be 2 games, like the price of 2 games.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the price of 2 games. Typically, I think if I'm not mistaken, almost every Ultimate version was $40. Well, no, I think every Ultimate version was $40, and only the console-based base games were $60. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. But
I don't remember.
I recently dove into that in one of my videos, so I can't remember exactly. We're just merely spitballing right here.
Yeah.
Continuing on though, World and Rise broke some of these conventions. Monster Hunter World Iceborne and Rise's challenging Sunbreak expansion were not standalone games, but rather more traditional expansions. You know, that's the difference between modern gen and old gen. This was a step in the right direction, as having to repurchase the base game to gain access to the fresh content the Ultimate version provided felt like a rather antiquated release system. It was weird. I wouldn't say antiquated. I would say it was just weird. You ended up paying around the same. You ended up paying the same amount as you do now.
Yeah, but it was just unnecessarily complicated because you had to import your save data from the old version to the new version, and then it wasn't seamless. Because now it's pretty much seamless. It's just a continuation.
Yeah, now it's now it's seamless. But the thing is, one could make the argument that the previous system, like their base world no longer exists. Like we have Clutch Claw, like we have all that stuff, like Claggers. You never will get to experience the base world the way that it was originally intended or originally made. You never get to experience that again.
Yeah.
Rise is a little different, though one could make the argument that the weapon reworks.
Balance changes.
Yeah, the weapon balance changed up the game a lot. For example, Longsword went from being the best melee weapon to being one of the worst melee weapons damage-wise because they double nerfed it with no ability to even get the circle from Sunbreak. So it was like... there are some things that basically vanish. Whereas, like, if I wanted to play Try or 3 without playing 3 Ultimate, I would still get to experience those games the way they were up until the end of their cycle. Because there were changes between the Ultimate versions and the non-Ultimate versions. There were some changes. And
even generations and GU.
Yeah, even Gen and GU. So a lot of changes. One could make the argument that it's not necessarily antiquated, but rather just weird.
Intentional?
Well,
maybe because they wanted to keep the base game available for people, maybe?
Maybe, I'm not sure. I mean...
Yeah.
It was definitely weird. I can't think of any other series that's done anything like this, especially for so long. Like Monster Hunter did it for like over 15 years. Or like 14 years. Like they did it for a long time.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely different, but I wouldn't call it antiquated. I would just call it weird. More than likely,
I mean, Monster is also one of the series which just take it with a grain of salt what I'm saying, but regurgitates content in a way, but people are still okay with it. It's one of the few series where no one complains. Not really.
Yeah. Monster
just keep reusing stuff.
Monster Hunter does reuse a lot of things, but the thing is, it's like you said, people don't complain about it because they really do innovate like every single release. Like they have different gimmicks, they have different things. They use different things with each skeleton. Like sure, you could pick out and point out, oh, Arzuros and Lagabi have similar moves, but they do have moves that set them apart as well. Like they do have different tendencies.
Yeah,
and so they reuse content in a very nice way. It's more than just a EA Sports game where they're like, oh, we added a new animation for the spin move for your new football game and they updated roster. Or for like a Call of Duty where, oh, you get to use the same guns with the same thing, with the same engine, with the same movement system. I mean, Black Ops 6 had Omni movement, which is cool, but at the same time, people aren't going to like that too because it's just different. I didn't even mean it as a bad thing because I just find it funny because other games, get shit on, like stuff like Elden Ring, especially FromSoft games for quote-unquote reusing everything, right? Yeah. But Monster Hunter no one bats an eye. But Elden Ring is like the worst reuse shit ever for some reason. Well, to be fair, for Elden Ring, it's more of a classic action adventure game style, whereas Monster Hunter, people like to make the argument whether it's hunting sim or just a boss rush.
Action boss rush, yeah.
But it falls in line more with boss rush, like going from one boss to the next. You get on the map. Sure, you have the option to explore the map and you have the option to do whatever you want with in that category. But the game is centered around the majority of the time you're just going to be fighting the monster. You're not going to be just running around. That's the majority of the time.
True. Or you play hide and seek and guiding links. You know, it's a very good game mode.
Or you can play hide and seek in the guiding lands. True. More than likely, Wilds will more closely follow the recent games with an additive expansion releasing within a 1 to 2 year time frame. He's right. More than likely, it will do that. With Iceborne and Sunbreak, the higher difficulty previously G rank was renamed to Master Rank, and it serves as the base difficulty for all content within the expansion. Beyond higher monster stats, Master Rank also affects monster movesets, creating much more deadly hunts. Along with the increased difficulty, a new in-game system is often added. Iceborne, for instance, introduced the Guiding Lands, an endlessly replayable zone that morphed in design and content based on the player's interactions with it. I think they're overblowing Guiding Lands a little bit too much, but it's a lot more simple than that. Sunbreak added anomaly monsters, which... Oh, were you going to say something?
I was gonna say that the Guiding Lands has so many problems that they kind of tried to fix, but not really. They didn't really.
Yeah, whenever they added lures, like meldable lures, and I think it was like Title Update 3, they that helped a lot. There was, if I'm not mistaken, Title Update 1, before Title Update 1 came out, there was like a patch that actually upped the Guiding Lands like grinding rate. Like you could level up the zones faster, and the zone decay was a lot less punishing. But there was like a good 2 weeks to a month, I think, where the Guiding Lands was just horrific to grind, and that was whenever I grinded Guiding Lands a lot. That was not fun. That was not a fun time.
I mean, just one of the main things that you go in there for, right? You go there for the not tempered materials, the Guiding Lands materials.
Yeah. Which
you only get by picking them up. So, but the thing is also they have a timer. Those shinies that drop. The timer is not long.
Yeah, the shinies timer was kind of annoying to deal with because you'd constantly have to put up your weapon mid-fight. And
this is a trend in World and Iceborne because of Clash Claw as well. So.
True. The gathering part was also not very good because you would have to like just ore. Oh, I finally have my big ore drop. I can get that. Oh, I don't have this zone leveled up, but I need this part. Well, you know, hopefully one of my friends has that zone leveled up. But then, you know, there's clearly some zones that are way better than others to have leveled up. Especially like later on, you know, augments wise. You want there's specific zones that you want leveled. So it's like it's hard to find, you know, people now with like all those zones leveled up in a way. If they're the kind of people that would grind it all out for themselves, like just to get those augments.
I also wonder why they haven't let us level all the zones up, you know, for yourself.
Well, you know, that's
like being able to level them all.
That's that Monster Hunter trend where they, you know, they fix some stuff, but they don't necessarily fix everything. For example, like Sunbreak anomaly levels, they increase the leveling like multiplier by like 4 to 5 times for like everything before 220. When really they should have also done that for 220 to 300 because that is a horrific grind.
I was thinking they did it with Guiding Lands, like they didn't let us to force multiplayer, like with sieges and all the other stuff that they did.
It was definitely one of those, you're incentivized to play multiplayer because you're not supposed to have every single one of them leveled up at the same time.
Yeah.
But the problem
because I don't like that, but it's a personal thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean my go-to philosophy and what they seem to be like leaning towards a lot with multiplayer health scaling now, as opposed to base world. Whenever you had 1 player or 4 player health scaling, now we have all 4 like player amounts.
Well, in Iceborne it was only 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah, in Iceborne they added 2, so that, but for some reason left out 3. That was goofy.
That was strange.
But they've
in Rise we got all of them, right?
Yeah, now we have in Rise we got all of them. Yeah, that's whenever that trend started. But they've been moving more towards like being able to accommodate, you know, whatever party amount you have, even or if you want to play solo. But there's some things in World that were just you really need to play multiplayer. Kultera, Safi whenever it first launched.
Safi, Behemoth. You could do them solo, but hell no. Not in the beginning, at least.
Ancient Lesson has the grab that will literally kill you if you don't have another person to help you out in a specific manner. You know, there was a lot of different things at the guiding lands, the way it's designed. I think the way they did anomaly quests was a lot better in that if you're, you know, you could have everything solo, but if like you knew someone that was like, yo, I've got the specific anomaly quest you're looking for. You need a great Ragi at level 180. I got that. And they can do it. And then you get the chance to get that investigation that they just posted. That was good. Yeah. That was a very good thing. Cause I was like, it encourages player interaction, but it doesn't force it like Guiding Lands does. Like Guiding Lands, oh, you want your specific augment, or I think some of the even like layered armor and equipment shit, you needed specific Guiding Land materials. Like, oh, you got to have this zone at level 5 or this zone at level 7.
Because you need to kill tempered monsters to get the layered stuff.
Yeah.
And you only get tempered monsters in higher zones, so...
Yeah, and they're specifically zone-specific, some of them are, so it's...
and I know how much of a pain in the ass that was because I grinded all layered armor. I have all of them.
God.
Because I'm crazy.
Couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. Continuing on, though. Sunbreak added the anomaly monsters, which would increase difficulty based on the level and grant an extra challenging behaviors to affected monsters. Didn't really change too much in the behavior other than the Nova, and sometimes they would stay in like damage states longer, like Silver and Gold Rathian would be able to stay in their forms longer. And then
except for Risen though. Risen monsters. They did change them at 250 plus.
Risen monsters are more similar to like Arch-Tempered monsters than anomaly monsters.
Yeah.
So
but they got a behavior change.
Wilds will likely draw the same criticism as previous titles. Expected expansions leave the endgame barren. These expansions have been consistently amazing. Iceborne is especially brutal yet satisfying. I don't know why they didn't mention Sunbreak, but they have a hyperlink here, so I assume they wrote an article about Iceborne. Offering an immense amount of content and value for the price. The glaring issue they cause has less to do with the expansions themselves, but rather how they interact with the base game they add on to. Monster Hunter fans have come to expect the lack of Master Rank in-game systems, as these features are relegated to the expansion. While a 1-year turnaround for expansions is quite fair, that's an entire year when the content of the base game can quickly grow stale at the end game. Capcom does do a good job continuing updates, adding additional monsters and crossover events, such as World's inclusion of Geralt and iconic... Dude, I can't read right now. Such as World's inclusion of Geralt and the iconic Leshen from The Witcher 3. There are goals to strive for too, such as felling elder dragons and other difficult hunts. However, the system surrounding this content is slim, typically being a band-aid mechanic added in. For in World, this was decoration farming, a tedious and RNG heavy system that players could sink hundreds of hunts worth of loot into to chase the best in slot decorations, gems that slot into equipped gear.
Okay.
I mean, the cycle, the 1 year like development time for DLC, that's for the size of the content, it's definitely worth. It makes a lot of sense. The continuing updates, the title update monsters, the events, all that stuff. I think this guy, I don't know if he actually farmed base world endgame because he didn't even mention streamstones. Now maybe he might mention them a little later.
Which was one of the worst parts ever.
True. Streamstones were awful, but that was the crux of endgame world. Like, you needed the streamstones to be able to augment your equipment. You needed specific streamstones, and you weren't guaranteed to get the ones you needed.
Or your weapon that you needed. So you might not even get one ever.
Yeah, and the decoration farming was a part of it, but a lot of it was like streamstone heavy. The real like crux of endgame and world, sure, you had like the benchmark fights, like Behemoth, Extreme Behemoth, Ancient Leshen, all of the AT Elder Dragons. He didn't even mention the AT Elder Dragons.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like pinnacle challenges that were added across the board alongside the system of grinding for streamstones and grinding for decorations. Ultimately, after you conquered everything, that's what you would be doing the majority of. But I think one issue is Monster Hunter is not a like live service title that demands your time. It doesn't have a battle pass. It doesn't have
There's no FOMO.
Yeah, there's no FOMO unless you count like event quests that will expire. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah. They usually come back.
Sometimes a lot of times it's because of licensing issues.
True. Yeah.
Like for example,
But they usually don't have something crazy as gear. It's like novelty.
Sometimes.
Oh.
Like if I'm not mistaken, the Sonic quest is actually gone from Rise. The only way you can get it is if someone posts it for you that already had it downloaded.
Does it give something good?
It gives you the Palico, Sonic skin.
Oh, okay, yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, shit like that.
I mean, yeah, cosmetic stuff, which, yeah.
Yeah.
I get the FOMO, yeah, but nothing nothing gameplay impacting, so I think it's okay.
It's not bad. It's not bad. The So
one criticism that I would actually have for the end game, or like the cycle of the base game, is them adding certain event quests that just trivialize the normal base game end game, because you then only end up doing those event quests, which that I don't think is a good thing.
I think that was more of an Iceborne issue than a.
Well, also, I mean, base world with the decorations, the Arc-Tempered Jaggers, Great Jaggers. The huge one.
True, but if you remember that one though specifically, you couldn't get the super high tier decorations. Or no, you could, but you weren't also capable of getting stream stones with that.
That is true.
The common end game grind was like tempered Teostra, tempered Nargigante, tempered Valhazak. Like that kind of, because no one wanted to fight tempered Lunastra, and no one wanted to fight tempered Kushala. Yeah, so it was like going into tempered investigation lobbies. That was the major thing, and that's the main thing that like I was doing after I like killed all the AT monsters and Extremith and everything. So I mean, I was doing that before those even came out. You know, like that was the crux of the end game. You know, there is an in-game system, and also, you know, we can dive into this a little bit later, but what is end game? You know, like the concept of end game is technically post-story content. Like once you are finished with the story of the game, I mean, there's a lot of Monster Hunter players, especially world players, that finish the game and then they just either put it down or they restart and play through the story again. You know, and whether you think that's the right way to do it or not, that is what a lot of people do. You know, that's what a lot of people do. Anything after, like this is Monster Hunter Endgame to me, and you know what? Probably to you, and probably to any vet that played any of the old gen games before 4, because there was no end game system before 4. There was no guild quest. There was no anything. You just fought whatever you wanted to. You maybe did the event quest. You did, you know, you just went to fight the monsters that you wanted to. You built the gear that you wanted to.
Yeah.
And then you worried about making any of the equipment and learning any of the weapons that you wanted. And that was the crux of Monster Hunter in-game. And you know what? That is the spirit of Monster Hunter as a whole. When you look at Monster Hunter's content, there's not too much. But the way they use RNG, the way that you use building, the way that you have to spend a lot of time in menus to learn how to build, to learn how to do whatever you want to. You know, they have a lot of systems to work on. You know, you want to unlock all these different things to automate items. Oh, you have to do these optional quests. You know, there was the ability to get the rainbow pigment in base world by doing every single optional quest. There was even like secret optional quests where you could get different layered armor. So there was like different things. Like Monster Hunter end game is not just, oh, you get this new system and you have to level up like another level, or you have to like make specific new gear off of RNG drop. Monster Hunter in game is also, oh, I want to learn Lance. I want to learn Gun Lance. I want to learn HBG. I want to learn Hunting Horn. I want to make builds for that. I want to make different types of builds for each of these weapons. I want to make fire weapons. I want to make water weapons. You know, I want to do whatever. I want to learn how to actually fight Extremith with dual blades. You know, like that is Monster Hunter endgame. It's not just endlessly fighting the same decoration quests or endlessly fighting tempered elder dragons. You know, sure, like there's a certain point everyone gets to where they're like, oh, I've learned all the weapons I want. You know, I've done this. But by the time you hit that, you might already be like 200, 300 hours deep.
Or more.
True, or way more.
Depending.
And that is
Because sometimes,
meaty, dude. That is meaty.
like, that's what I was gonna say. Because learning the weapons is one thing, but then learning to use the weapons against specific monsters is a different thing. It's a whole different beast.
Exactly. Because
And then
you
a good portion
could
of
make
people
the
also
argument you haven't really truly learned the weapon unless you can make it work against most of the content.
against everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because every single
And a
weapon
good-
is viable. Every single weapon is viable
Exactly.
against all the content.
At least now. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
That's a different topic. That's a whole different can of worms. We're not gonna open that
We'll
one.
get to that one later. That's a
was
special
also-
surprise for later.
This is a whole own video. It's gonna need his own video, maybe. But I was gonna say, also a good portion of people started doing like self-imposed challenges.
Yeah.
Like I did with Fatty, killing him solo with every weapon type in a good time is what I wanted to do, and I just did it because it was
True.
fun.
And that's part of that weapon mastery.
Exactly, like trying to beat the hardest challenge. So if you can do that, then the easier ones should be no problem.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a very flexible type of game. It's not just static
Yeah.
1-to-1 like this.
Pretty much like you could call it like a sandbox.
Yeah,
Even though it's
that's
not.
exactly actually it kind of is. I mean,
Yeah,
like when you think of a sandbox, you think typically people think of like the interactivity of a map and stuff, but really and truly, it's also the tools involved. They have
I was gonna
14
say,
different
like,
weapons, completely different playstyles.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of toys. There's a lot of toys to play with.
And yeah, that's. I mean, and Wilds is about to dive even deeper into that with the weapon swap system. So that's going to be sick.
Yeah.
But continuing on with the article, this is without mentioning the lack of master rank. Knowing that every monster available is a lesser version of their master rank counterpart can also diminish the end game in some ways. While every Monster Hunter game thus far has been a masterclass in content and variety, the expansion cycle feels like one of the last major thorns of the franchise. Now, this is after they talked about endgame and like difficulty and stuff. I disagree with that whole.
Wait, I think you missed a portion. The one
No,
above.
no, it's we already went through that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, really? The one above with the decorations don't provide
Yeah.
same feels upgrading gear?
Wait, hold
Really?
on.
No, I think you missed that one.
Oh, yeah, we didn't read that. Damn. Okay, hold
Yeah.
on. No, we read that. Now, this
Right,
part,
right.
I didn't read this. Decorations don't provide the same appeal as upgrading gear. There's no visual indicator of their existence, and a best in slot, BIS, I would imagine. Decoration often just provides flat stats. It does take quite a while to reach this point of the end game, and also assumes that hundreds of hours have already been sunk into the game. Yeah, hundreds of hours. They're already talking about hundreds of hours. Yet the fact that proper in-game systems do exist, but the players have to wait for the expansion to gain access to them, does sting. Okay, Monster Hunter players in modern Monster Hunter are always waiting. That is the way they've designed it. Even if this guy's going to make the argument that Guiding Lands was an actual proper in-game system, which I don't know if I'd make that argument. It is a end-game system, but I wouldn't. I don't, you could make the argument whether it's a proper one or not. What even constitutes a proper end-game system? This guy might have forgotten, or maybe he wasn't there to experience it. But we didn't get full Guiding Lands until after 2 title updates. The ice biome and the volcanic biome did not exist. Also, it was only up to level 5 at launch. And each update added an extra level. We didn't even have tempered elder dragons in the Guiding Lands until those title updates. So if this guy's making the argument about waiting, you still had to wait in Iceborne. You still had to wait.
Even Sunbreak.
In Sunbreak, you had to wait for the anomaly investigation levels. Yeah. The Monster Hunter is you could now, if you want to criticize that, if you want to criticize, they're making you, kind of hanging you by the hook and they're not letting you like finish everything up. You could make that argument if there weren't so many other things to do in the meantime.
True.
There were plenty of things to do. You have plenty of optionals, plenty of event quests, plenty of weapons to learn. And that's the main thing. Like, instead of treating this time of waiting of what else can I fill my palate with? What else can I fill my belly with? What kind of monsters can I hunt? What kind of things can I do? because they're also introducing other monsters in these title updates. Iceborne, despite having guiding lands, still brought in multiple monsters. Sunbreak, despite having anomaly investigations, still brought in multiple monsters, including the equivalent to Arch-Tempered monsters, the Risen Elder Dragons, which there are 5 of in Sunbreak. And in base world, and in Iceborne, we only got 2 AT Elder Dragons because they were only for the ones that were introduced into the game during Iceborne. So Namiel and Velkhana. So
the thing is, so far the articles seems like comes from a perspective of just getting rewards. Playing the game to get something,
or maybe even like an arbitrary like leveling system. Because like they harped on the guiding lands a bit, and it's like
just increasing something, just increasing a stat or something instead of just playing the game for enjoyment, which is what games are for.
Well, the funny thing about that is you have hunter rank level and master rank level, and to some people in game is getting that to 999.
True, but they can do that all the time. They don't have to wait. So
that's another thing. Like exactly, like there's so many things you can just do.
Yeah.
And like what constitutes in-game, what constitutes completing the Monster Hunter game? There are plenty of people that interact and completely finish every single aspect of the end-game systems, whether we're talking anomaly quests, they could do all 58 special investigations system. In GU, they could do all 228 deviant quests. But you could, all of these people could also never finish their guild card.
Like me.
Yeah, exactly. I've never finished a guild card. And there's plenty of people that I know of and that are in the community. They do their guild card. And some of them will even go to Hunter Rank 999. They'll grind a specific quest specifically to hit 999.
Oh, yeah.
And then they'll never even interact with something like the Guiding Lands or the Anomaly system. Like they will finish their guild card. They will do all these things. They will technically, from an achievement hunter perspective, 100% in the game without even touching the most important aspects of the game to this guy and to even people like me. I care about in-game a lot. I do. I really do. And that's where I'm spending most of my time after finishing the story. I'm not redoing the story. I'm not redoing any of that stuff. If I want to pick up another weapon, I'm going to pick up another weapon against the in-game stuff. And that's the way I play, but at the same time I'm able to recognize that there's so much to these games than just some kind of leveling system. I hope he's talking about that for the Guiding Lands. He talks about replayability. If he's just talking about the ability to like lure different monsters in, that's what investigations are for. That's what optional quests are for. We already have the capability to hunt these monsters whenever we want to. I don't know. But
also with the one German guy that we both know that just grinded the same Apex Diablos in Rise to reach 999, and that's all he did. That's I guess it's valid, and he wasn't complaining about anything. So
yeah, I mean that is a way to play.
Yeah, not my way, but I guess his way.
True. This is without mentioning, back to the article though, this is without mentioning the lack of Master Ink. Knowing that every monster available is a lesser version of their Master Ink counterpart can also diminish the end game in some ways. While every Monster Hunter game thus far has been a masterclass in content and variety, the expansion cycle feels like one of the last major thorns for the franchise. Well, I mean, like, sure, you could be like, oh, this low rank whatever is not going to have the same amount of move, speed, or attack damage as the Master Rank version. But that's the whole point of low rank, right? That's the whole point of
that's the thing. These cannot expect to have the same challenge in low rank after beating everything in in the end game. Yeah,
definitely the whole like, oh, I fight the lesser version of the other monster, of this monster, and it's going to feel diminished. I wouldn't say so. While like high rank whatever is not going to be more difficult than some other things, there are definitely pinnacle challenges that can be. I mean, there was the one-shot Magnum Alo in Base Rise. There was Advanced Apex Zinogre in Base Rise. There was AT Nergigante in Base World. There was Extreme Behemoth in Base World. There's definite problem children that will beat your ass if you're not careful.
Well, I also look at it from a different perspective because I just think like, oh, I'm fighting this in low rank right now. He's gonna be even, he's gonna be different in high rank, and then again more different in master rank. Something to look forward to.
True.
In my eyes.
I mean, even potentially there are monsters that don't exist in master rank that only exist in master rank. For example, Nergigante with his lesser younger brother, Ruiner Nergigante.
I mean,
or things like that. So, you never know what you're gonna get with master rank and higher rank. So enjoy it while you can. Enjoy what you get in higher rank. That's my motto. I don't know if the expansion cycle is is one of the last major thorns. That's a little.
Yeah,
that's a little sensationalist, but it is what it is.
A little bit dramatic.
Yeah,
a little bit dramatic.
How Monster Hunter Wilds could lessen the severity of an absent master rank.
Now here we go. Let's see what he has in his mind.
Progression needs to feel worthwhile even before an expansion. It's a shame that players will have to wait for a proper in-game system for each new entry into the franchise. The best approach to lessen the severity of this fact would be to include those systems within the base game. While previous Monster Hunter games have tried to include something, arbitrary RNG fests are certainly not the best that Capcom can do.
Okay.
You could make the argument that all of Monster Hunter is an arbitrary RNG fest.
Exactly.
That's literally the whole point of drop rates. That is the whole
the monsters
point
are just
of the
big
Skinner
loot
box.
boxes.
Yeah, the monster. You could argue. I mean, sure. Like, I agree. Streamstone's RNG were awful. I agree. Kulf Teroth elemental weapon grinding, awful. And you know what? They rectified that with Safi Jiva. And with Streamstones, they rectified that by making it actual, like, oh, if you kill a specific monster in the Guiding Lands, then you get the drop no matter what, basically.
Yeah.
They didn't even bring Streamstones back in Iceborne.
But also getting that monster, in the Guiding Nest is also RNG in the first place.
True.
Until Lures came in.
True.
Also RNG.
It was a little easier RNG though. It was a little bit easier.
Yeah. It wasn't that bad.
And that's the thing. Like, as long as there are some things that can help along the way. For example, World had the Wyvern Prince that you could use to meld specific like gems and stuff. To help out with subsequent grinding. Yeah. That helps out a lot. I mean, gem drop rates and everything have always been a part of Monster Hunter. The legendary, having to hunt the same monster over and over and over again for its one specific drop. That is Monster Hunter to a T. Is that an arbitrary RNG fest? You can make an argument, sure, but then you'd be criticizing all of Monster Hunter, not just end game for World or Rise.
Yep.
So I don't think that's as like solid of an argument as he wants it to be, because Monster Hunter at its core is RNG based. Back to the article. The final update for Iceborne was Fatalis, perhaps the most classic and threatening Elder Dragon in the franchise. Felling Fatalis is the ultimate achievement of Iceborne. It requires players to go through a rodeo of ever more difficult fights to increase their hunter rank, their skill, and their gear. The Guiding Lands helped this journey quite a bit, providing a zone in which players could grind out these elements of the game while simultaneously progressing a dynamic in-game only environment. While perhaps unfair to relate the entire development cycle of a game to the initial release of another, Iceborne does show how satisfying and well crafted a Monster Hunter endgame can be. Having some form of endless progression, I wouldn't say it's endless. That's holy shit. That's very exaggeratory.
Yeah.
Tied in with an ultimate challenge is what Monster Hunter does best. Now, so he's making. First off, Fatalis doesn't come out until the end of Iceborne. That's like a whole year, right?
Yeah,
So,
pretty much.
Like, it doesn't matter now, but people seem to forget.
Was it a year?
Yeah, like the Fatalis came out like 8-9 months after Iceborne came out.
Damn.
It was like 8 or 9 months. It was something like that. Like, people all the time, like, they talk about these games in their finished state, neglecting that there are a lot of people that their experience with the game was release state. And the release state matters a lot, because that is where the players are going to be for the most part.
Yeah.
But World had a lot of people coming in after Iceborne launched. World had a lot of people coming in after Iceborne launched, And it had a lot of people going in after Iceborne ended. So, there's a lot of people that never experienced all the quirks of the real base world experience or the real base Iceborne experience pre-title updates or even during the title updates. I think his usage of Fatalis alongside the Guiding Lens, both, like Guiding Lens wasn't finished at launch and Fatalis didn't exist until the end of the game. I think that's a little unfair to try to describe, pull that out against a base release, especially with no title updates. And also the concept of, notice how he says, Iceborne does show how satisfying and well-crafted a Monster Hunter endgame can be, having some form of endless progression tied in with an ultimate challenge. This is what Monster Hunter does best. What were we talking about earlier? We were talking about how there's an endless amount of things you can do in Monster Hunter while leveling up or grinding out builds to take on the biggest challenges. And this guy is congratulating Iceborne for that. And he's shitting on base world for that.
So he's criticizing the game, how they are in the base state and the release state pretty much, but then like praising the game when it's finished after all the updates.
Well, no, it looks like he's specifically congratulating Fatalis with Guiding Lands. So like the whole premise is Guiding Lands is this endless progression thing that you can just dive into while building up your armor, your HR, like everything you need to until you can beat Fatalis. So he's like basically making the statement, you can hop in this dynamic end game environment. It gets you kitted up for the ultimate challenge, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you could do in any other Monster Hunter without.
Which is also not true, because the best gear you get is outside of the Guiding Lands.
That is true. Fatalis. That is true.
And also, Fatalis is another can of worms in terms of like endgame, because you can do Fatalis when you unlock Guiding Lands. So you can just get his gear before you get any other gear if you're good enough, and trivialize everything else. That's another problem.
Well, I think that's the biggest issue with this article, right? Is the
guy has no idea.
I think he's like I'm just gonna well actually, I think that's a more kind way to say it. Like he doesn't really have much of a clue.
Okay.
I would be a little bit more hesitant to say that he's being intellectually dishonest. Maybe he really is just ignorant. Maybe he really just doesn't get it, because he mentioned specifically progression and dynamic endgame only environment. So maybe to him, endgame is a new locale. Endgame is a place where you can just fight whatever monster you want, even though you can't technically fight every monster in the Guiding Lands. You really can't.
You can't.
And also it is finite progression. Even if you were to do the thing where you level up every zone by just fighting tempered Nergigante, Ruiner Nergigante over and over again for 3,000 hunts, that's still it has an end.
Yeah.
Maybe we're penny pinching a little bit here, but I think he's just ignorant. I don't think that he's malicious. I think he just doesn't get it. He clearly really liked the Guiding Lands, and maybe hopped in at the end of Iceborne cycle where like all of these things already existed. So like that was his experience.
It's funny that someone like that makes an article about the base game of Monster Hunter.
It is funny, but that's that's gaming journalism.
Yeah, exactly.
And this guy, like he does some things pretty well researched. Like he talked about the different previous game cycles. He talked about different things like that. So it's not like the worst article in the world. True. But at the same time, it's like he's reaching a lot. Continuing on though, having some form of endless progression tied in with an ultimate challenge is what Monster Hunter does best. Players purchase Monster Hunter simply to hunt monsters, when the overall goal of an endgame is to grind for minuscule increases of power on pieces of gear which themselves don't share the flavor of equipable monster-based armor and weapons. The endgame strays too far from the core of the game. So I think he's making the argument against world decoration farming here, but I would be inclined to disagree. You still have to fight the monsters to get the decoration drops. You still have to fight and engage with the mechanics. And you know what? One of the things he is reflecting positively on a lot is Guiding Lands. You have to fight monsters in the Guiding Lands to get augments.
Yeah, I don't get what he meant by the endgame strays too far from the core of the game, because you just do the same thing as you always did.
I think he's making the argument from the like very reductionist argument that Monster Hunter is you fight monster, you skin them, you turn them into equipment, and then you get power based on that. I think he's making the argument that that is the core of the game. And from that, you could make the argument that both Base World and Iceborne had the best end games because it was only title update power creep. So the concept of fighting the monster, making powerful gear, and becoming more powerful was definitely around for Base World. And it was one of the things that people disliked about things like Draken Armor because it was so much better than everything else.
Well, just like Vitalis armor now. His point doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, we're pinching a lot though. Like, you know, we could go all day. we could make arguments all day, you know, defending different aspects of Monster Hunter or even talking about it because, you know, we were there ground zero for New World. So, you know, it is
and
what it is.
The games deserve criticism. That's the thing, but not this.
Yeah, you know, any game deserves criticism, you know, and to be better. But this is not. I've yet to see a very valid like argument from this perspective. Like it's very it's you know, you could criticize Endgame in Base World, you can criticize Endgame in Base Rise, whatever Endgame existed in Base Rise, you know. So like, but there are also criticisms for Iceborne, there are also criticisms for Sunbreak. The games, they accomplish what they do. Base World, Base Rise, they both did really well to accomplish keeping your attention, having you play. You know, Base Rise had a lot of things that kind of, you know, were unfortunate that it had to be developed during COVID season. And also it suffered from the Capcom data breach that happened the year before its launch. So super crossovers and having the game come out in a completely finished state. We better be glad Base Rise even worked. There were a lot of games that didn't work at that time period whenever, you know, post-COVID. So you can make criticisms, whatever.
Yeah.
This is not it, Nicholas. Come on, Nick.
This ain't it, man. This ain't it. But we're not done yet. So
true. You know what? Maybe he redeems himself. Maybe there's a redemption arc. Let's
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Okay. Hopefully Wilds will learn from one of the primary criticisms of both World and Rise and include a system that has more thought put into it. It's important to note that the lifespan of a Monster Hunter title is far more weighted towards its expansion content. Players spend around 2 years within Worlds Endgame and 6 years within Iceborne's. But even so, that small slice of Endgame is still a sizable amount of time on its own. I think that it's an interesting point he makes. However, there are people that they only play the base game still. There were a lot of people when Iceborne criticisms. Yeah, there were a lot of people that didn't buy Iceborne and they were just playing World, you know, and still in Worlds in game. The expansion content is more important from like a longevity standpoint, but
player retention.
I think that, you know, the end game in the base game should also be good, you know, for the people that don't have that small slice.
It makes the wait for the expansion also more bearable.
Yeah. The result of
content drought.
Yeah, no content drought. The result of this waited time is in Monster Hunter has earned a reputation as a game that facilitates hundreds of hours and rewards players for doing so. Yet this is never the case for the first few years of new entry's lifespan, which often creates a negative initial impression of that lauded replayability. That's not true.
Yeah, that's not why people stop playing, not because the game is lacking replayability.
Yeah, there are plenty of people. There are plenty of people that don't even interact with the guiding. Like he's been like touching on the guiding lands so much. There are people that didn't even interact with it. Prolific YouTubers that go back and play lots of old world games like Super Rad. He's on camera stating he will never touch the guiding lands or the anomaly system because he doesn't like them. He doesn't like that idea of an in-game loop. So, which falls flat on the face of this article right here.
Yeah.
People can put hundreds of hours into these games fighting Apex Diablos to hit HR 999 and base rise. A negative initial impression of lauded replayability. Listen, if people don't like the low rank, high rank loop of Monster Hunter, they are not going to like the end game loops.
Yeah, exactly.
They are not, even if Wilds comes out with a Guiding Lands anomaly system hybrid, there are people that won't play it and there are people that won't like it. Why? Because people don't like grinding. People didn't like the
At least
grinding
not
lands.
excessive grinding, I guess.
True, people didn't like excessive grinding. Or people just wanted to face the pinnacle monsters and not have to worry about an arbitrary leveling system. This guy is all about the arbitrary leveling systems, the grinding lands, and its endless progression. Nicholas, no! No, Nicholas! You're trying your best.
I was thinking who's Nicholas, but then I realized it's the author's name.
Yeah,
What were you talking about?
The result of this waited time is Monster Hunter has earned. Wait, no, I just read that.
Oh, you already read this, yeah.
Beyond Wilds individually, it feels as though every Monster Hunter game has an endless list of reasons to play it, but with an eternal asterisk. I keep messing that one up. That hinges on its release cycle, with new open beta tests on the way towards the game's close release. Hopefully, Monster Hunter Wilds has had some behind-the-scenes work on nullifying this asterisk. This series, as a whole, needs to move past perhaps the last consistently present issue of the franchise with a tangible sense of replayability and goals at the end game.
I guess that's a more fair statement.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that this is a consistent bad issue, though.
No, that's not it. But I would say that like a better endgame would be just nice in the base game even.
I mean, definitely. But the thing is, like,
Yeah.
what is going to be a good end game? You know, like there are going to be plenty of people that are upset about it no matter what. And also, whenever your whole game's premise is already founded upon Skinner box RNG. And we already know from Wilds they're bringing Deco Grind back and things like that. You know, they've already, you know, based on all of the trailer footage and all the stuff we've seen, we already saw the Deco icons.
Yeah.
There's going to be more RNG involved. That's just what Monster Hunter is. And depending on how far they lean into that or how far they lean into arbitrary leveling systems where they may make the grind super, super long, whether it's Guiding Lands or Anomaly system, there are people that are not going to like that either because it takes a long time.
Yeah, well, I also just saw that something. There's a risk when you put such an endgame into the base game, which is, what if people put like a ton of hours into it, and then it just becomes trivial when you move into the expansion? A lot of people are going to feel like they wasted their time if it doesn't hold its value in the expansion.
Well, I mean,
like people that grinded the cold weapons in the base game like crazy.
Yeah.
I knew people that were really upset about it.
I think that's more of a.
That affects the time, like a much smaller audience. Yeah, like in my eyes, true, but it's a risk.
I mean, sure, but you could make that same argument for low rank.
But you don't spend that much time in low rank.
There are people that spend a lot of time in low rank.
I mean, that's on them then.
Well, you could make the same argument, like, oh, you farmed Kulv Teroth like that? Oh, that's on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's my thing. Like low rank, like, oh man, in base world, I did every low rank optional and I unlocked the I unlocked the Kieran quest. Oh, I got low rank Kieran armor. I got low rank Elder Dragon armor. Oh no, the ingot armor is better from high rank.
Yeah, I know. I know what you mean.
So like that kind of gambit could be that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that's the thing. Like, if they introduce like an end game into the base game, they would have to try to include it into the the expansion somehow.
True.
Or it's just lose it, or just like get rid of the system, like freaking what's it called?
Rampage.
Exactly. I guess Rampage was there at the idea of an Endgame, but not many people liked it, and then they were like, oh yeah, let's get rid of it, and then the expansion, no one cares.
Yeah, Rampage was terrible. But yeah, I mean, Nicholas tried. I mean, Nicholas is trying to like invoke some discussion.
Yeah,
he definitely cares about the franchise in his own way. I just don't think he. I don't think he completely gets it, and I think he liked the guiding lines a little too much. He talked about the guiding lines a lot, and he didn't talk about Sunbreak really at all.
Maybe he was playing hide and seek in the guiding lines.
Maybe. Yeah, this guy clearly, he seems like he didn't play at base world launch, and he also seems like he didn't play Sunbreak or Rise. He didn't mention anything about base Rise, and it's like
also he makes it seem like this thing what he talks about in the entire article is like such a big and primary issue. I wonder where he hears that from. Is he just lying and disingenuous and is his own opinion, or does he actually hear that from a lot of people? Because I never heard that before.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe he's got some industry friends or something. And maybe he's good buddies with some IGN guys or something. I don't know.
True.
But who knows? I mean, Nick, you tried. I'm sorry your article wasn't great, but I can tell you worked hard on it. So kudos to you.
Yeah, do better next time.
Hey, maybe do a little more homework. Yeah, maybe do a little homework.
Maybe play some Rise or Sunbreak. You'll like it.
Yeah, play some. Actually play base Rise and Sunbreak, bro. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Birdie, thanks for coming. Appreciate your time.
Anytime.
I love you, buddy.
Love you too, man.
What do you have to say to the Steakhouse? What do you have to say to the Steakhouse?
The Steakhouse. Stay meaty, my friends.
Stay meaty, my friends. Let's go. All right. I'll get you, bro.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I've got dinner ready. Let him cook.